Cyberpunk is probably one of my favorite aesthetics. I like it almost as much as I like Vaporwave. And by Cyberpunk, I don't mean this game. Well, I do, but not only this game, but the entire Cyberpunk genre. I grew up on video games such as Deus Ex.
Maybe you should try getting a job.
SNATCHER. And the original Shadowrun. I just love everything about this genre. The dark dystopian future, the corrupt corporations, futuristic technology, flying cars, robots, cybernetic enhancements, hackers, late-stage capitalism, evil Asians, neon lights, and a gritty criminal underworld. High-tech, low-life, and of course, Keanu Reeves. Now, you may be asking yourself, wait, did he just say evil Asians? Yeah, I did. If you hadn't noticed, one of the most common elements that show up in most every single Cyberpunk book, movie, or game are Asians. In Cyberpunk 2077, the Japanese megacorporation Arasaka serves as one of the game's antagonists, organized, ruthless, and always chasing a profit. It seems that in almost every conceptualization of post-apocalypsia, Asians play an important, no, a necessary role. Oftentimes, they're depicted as faceless, mysterious, and shady overlords of monolithic megacorporations, but other times they're just there to enhance the flavor of the scene, I guess. The question is, why? This is no coincidence. As is usually the case with similar tropes, this narrative trope in itself stems from a sort of yellow peril, a fear of the unknown, a fear of the other, the belief that something foreign is a danger to the Western world. Narratively, they often serve as a foil, contrasting their cold ruthlessness and cleverness to the warm-hearted kindness and sincerity of the almost always white protagonist. And just like countless other things, this can be attributed to post-war Japan. You see, after World War II, Japan suffered a devastating loss. The destruction left in war's wake caused a massive blow not only to Japan's economy, but society itself. As such, the United States took it upon themselves to work hand in hand with the new Japanese government to help rebuild Japanese society. They played a large role in drafting a new Japanese constitution in order to become a more democratic society, and as a cherry on top, to prevent any future instances of warmongering. They were forced to disband their military. The United States assumed the responsibility of defending Japan against foreign threats, and not having to pay for a military proved to be a blessing in disguise for their economy. Instead of having to spend on a full-fledged military, they were able to put it straight into industrialization and technology. Practically everything had to be started from the ground up, but thanks to the hard work of the Japanese people, as well as foreign aid from their allies, they were able to not only recover, but thrive. This led to Japan's post-war economic miracle. All of a sudden, business was booming. Japan started developing the world's best new TVs, VCRs, cassettes, cars, Walkman, VHS, video game consoles, and they exported it all over the world. During this time, the value of both land and technology in Japan skyrocketed over a very short period of time. And from 1967 all the way up until 2010, Japan had the second highest GDP in the world, behind only the United States and almost matching it. Japan did well for itself, almost too well. They did so well that Americans feared that Japan would surpass them as a global superpower. This economic miracle hit its apex in the 1980s and early 90s, and uncoincidentally, this is the same time as the beginnings of the cyberpunk movement. And while there were earlier works that exhibit qualities of a sort of proto-cyberpunk, most people can agree that the founding fathers of cyberpunk were, in the West, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, released in 1982, and Neuromancer, the 1984 novel that solidified cyberpunk as a genre. In the West, this fear was personified in the cyberpunk movies of the 80s. Typically in Western cinema, Asians are almost always stereotyped as an honorable warrior, a sidekick, the nerd.
Math club!
Yeah?
I'm Asian! You guys Asian?
It's pretty racist, man.
That wasn't a no! I'm coming over!
Or specifically with Asian women, a seductress, an an assassin, or a prostitute. In the world of Cyberpunk, this foreignness factor was cranked up to 11, and now you have cyborg prostitutes and cyborg assassins. Their coldness and inhumanity now represented in a literal sense. Perhaps this is due in part to the fact that Japanese culture is so proper, precise, clean, and puts so much emphasis in work. And this isn't me being facetious either. The Japanese acknowledge this as a problem as well. In the JRPG Persona 5, workers of a Japanese business are literally portrayed as robots. And in Western Cyberpunk, the headquarters of these Asian-owned megacorporations dominate the post-apocalyptic city skyline. These cities typically being American cities like LA, now polluted, dark, and desolate, teeming with mysterious hackers, companies, vendors, and roving gangs of Oriental origin, of course, in a way saying this is how things would end up if Japan ruled the world. Of course, all this without actually saying it. Till this point, I've neglected to mention a third founding father of Cyberpunk, Akira, the manga that would bring Cyberpunk to Japan. As fate would have it, the manga was created simultaneously with, yet independent from, Blade Runner, which came out the same year, also being released in 1982. What followed was a string of anime revolving around a cyberpunk setting. Anime such as Serial Experiment Lane, Bubblegum Crisis, Battle Angel Alita, and of course, the gold standard of cyberpunk, Ghost in the Shell. The Japanese made the genre their own, and it's still popular to this day with anime such as Psycho Pass, No Guns Life, and Akudama Drive. When the Japanese bubble burst in the 90s, the fear of Japan taking over the world all but disappeared. Japan is no longer feared by the Western world, and one can even argue that one of Japan's biggest exports is its culture. More recently, there's been a shift in not only the cyberpunk genre, but in society as a whole when it comes to representing Asians in media. Nowadays, we often see films that expressively show a beautiful blend of Eastern and Western culture.
Cyberpunk cities,
the king of all
aesthetics.
Light, fluffy, delicious, and I'm going to show you how to cook it perfectly.
A little bit of Tokyo here, a bit of Hong Kong there, sprinkle in some Seoul, and 2 tablespoons of Shanghai. And then combine it with a little bit of American spice, LA, San Fran, Chicago, or Miami, depending on taste.
Bloody delicious.
That is, in a word, techno-orientalism, a portrayal of Asia, Asian people, or Asian qualities as hyper-technologically advanced. And like I said, while this did start as a fear of the unknown, I believe it can be seen as a celebration of the technology and modernity of large Asian cities these days. In my opinion, a perfect example of this is the city in Big Hero 6, San Francisco, a gorgeous blend of Eastern and Western architecture, a distinct feel of multiculturalism. I mean, look at this attention to detail. Look at the buildings, neon signs, their house, this bridge. This police car pulls up for only a split second, and it effectively conveys the information that it is obviously a police car, but if you pause that clip and zoom in, police is also written in kanji, just like real Japanese police cars. I'm confident that if the target audience for Big Hero 6 was a bit older, it could have been an amazing cyberpunk film. And say what you want about the bugs and glitches of Cyberpunk 2077, but the visuals of the game are unmatched, and it's another example of techno-orientalism, particularly in the neighborhoods such as Japantown and Little China. Of course, Japan can't have all the fun. Although less prevalent in Cyberpunk than Japan, South Korea may have even surpassed Japan when it comes to exporting their own culture, with K-drama and K-pop going worldwide in a big way. And in these days, as China has surged past virtually everyone in nearly every quantitative category, it's no surprise that it has replaced Japan as the Far East boogeyman. Maybe that's a discussion for another time, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Seoul or even Shanghai gets more attention in the cyberpunk genre, or who knows, maybe even Manila. And while the old Japan taking over the world trope is no longer relevant, it's interesting to see that this genre, which in the West had qualities of yellow peril and blatant stereotypical tropes, was taken by Asian countries and reappropriated, sometimes even emulating Western cyberpunk in a way. And whether you think this is perpetuating Asian stereotypes, I'm not one to tell a country how to represent themselves in their own media. Getting its start simultaneously in the East and the West, you could say that cyberpunk has dual citizenship. And as the world becomes more globalized, we kind of see those differences disappear. All in all, cyberpunk is one of my favorite genres, and it has a brilliant commentary on capitalism, inequality, individualism, technology, and of course, it just looks freaking cool. Hey, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and hey, why not buy us a coffee? Also, while doing research for this video, I really enjoyed the video by Reject Studios, and I was surprised at how high quality it was. I couldn't believe he only has 9 subscribers. If you enjoy this topic and want to learn more, give this video a watch as well. And as always, thanks for watching.